Hello, welcome to Portsmouth City Sights. I'm Natasha Katu. I'll be your host for today, but I'll be needing some help from my partner, Taylor Budd, and our very own Joe Gibbon in Studio 2. Coming up on today's show, we'll be taking you on a journey around 5 top attractions situated in and around this lovely south coast city we call Portsmouth. Firstly, we'll be exploring the big, the tall, the famous Spinnaker Tower.
Actually, Natasha, if you don't mind me saying, it's now renowned as the Emirates Spinnaker Tower, hence the big words Emirates written down the side of it. But secondly, I'll be taking a trip down memory lane by visiting the Mary Rose Museum.
Coming up as a number 3, we'll be getting our sporty spirits up with a trip to Fratton Park. Besides, what good is a town without its football team to represent it?
We'll also be visiting the Model Village in Southsea, where we'll be giving you information about its roots and how it came to be created in Portsmouth. And lastly, we'll be sailing over to the Solent Forts, our 5th and final attraction.
Now that you know what's coming up, get strapped in and here we go. The Emirates Spinnaker Tower has been made a landmark since its opening on the 18th of October 2005. The tower was originally called the Portsmouth Millennium Tower to coincide with Millennium celebrations. Interestingly, its shape was chosen by Portsmouth residents from a selection of others.
See, if it were up to me, I'd have it shaped like a giant air balloon.
And that's probably why it wasn't up to you. The project to build the tower cost a whopping $35 million, which in return the Spinnaker proudly boasts about having the largest glass floor in the whole of Europe. It can be seen from the Isle of Wight, the Manhunt Peninsula, and even Highdown Gardens in Worthing.
It can also be seen all the way from Dubai.
Really? I don't think so, but let's head over to Joe in Studio 2 to give us some confirmation.
Are you sure?
Thank you, Natasha. That's what I'm here for. But actually, Taylor, that would be the Burj Al Arab, which is almost twice the size of the Spinnaker Tower. Both buildings have a similar structure, so I can see where you made the mistake there. Good effort. Don't expect to see the sandy beaches that surround the Burj Al Arab in Gunwharf. However, it still holds a beautiful surrounding of new residential buildings and, of course, the dockyard. Talking of effort, Natasha made an effortless trip to the Emirates Spinnaker Tower to find out more of what makes it such a spectacular attraction.
I'm here in the Spinnaker Tower to find out all about this iconic landmark. The Emirates Spinnaker Tower is taller than the London Eye, Blackwall Tower and Big Ben and has already established itself as a national icon for Britain. You can surround yourself with a 350-degree breathtaking view of the city and seascapes stretching over 23 miles. This iconic landmark, which has welcomed 3 million visitors. Let's go speak to James Castle upstairs. So why is it that people visit the Spinnaker Tower?
The tower is visited most frequently for people to take in our breathtaking views. There's a 350-degree panorama of Portsmouth and the surrounding areas. It's also one of the most iconic buildings within Portsmouth.
I understand Spinnaker Tower is celebrating its 10-year anniversary. Why was it built and did you do anything exciting to celebrate the anniversary?
The Emirates Spinnaker Tower was built as part of the Millennium Project and the regeneration of the Portsmouth Harbour as kind of a beacon almost of the south coast.
When here in the Spinnaker Tower, is there a specific spot most popular for viewing?
Various different attractions that bring people within the building. We've got our skywalk where people feel like they're walking on air. Around View Deck 1 there's our interactive eye views which tell you quite an in-depth look about the view. We also have our audio guides which give you a very in-depth thing about Portsmouth and the surrounding area. We have our Cafe on the Clouds which is on View Deck 2 so you can kind of sit, have coffee, maybe some cake and take in the view and kind of relax and take it all in. And then we do also on our ground floor have our waterfront cafe which offers meals and refreshments and is the closest you can get to the water and a restaurant within Gunwharf.
How is the Emirates Spinnaker Tower connected with the dockyard?
So we work closely with the dockyard to promote Portsmouth and kind of as a tourism industry bring people down to us to come and visit, and we also have joint tickets with them where you can buy tickets through us and you get discounted on all their attractions as well.
With Emirates Spinnaker Tower having different views, this is a great location for tourists, families or even locals to come in and spend the day. I must say, It was a pleasure to be given the opportunity to experience such a great view at the Emirates Spinnaker Tower and further learn about how it came to be a memorable landmark.
Well, cheers for the invite. Seeing as Natasha refuses to be seen with me in public, I made my own journey to the Mary Rose Museum, our show's number 2 attraction. The Mary Rose Museum is unlike any other museum experience, giving people the chance to immerse themselves in the environment of a Tudor warship. Many of the Tudor objects on display are completely unique and people are given the chance to handle and interact with a number of displays.
The importance of having a museum is often overlooked by today's modern society, so it is our pleasure to include the Mary Rose as one of our fond attractions. The Mary Rose was a carrack-type warship of the English Tudor Navy of King Henry VIII.
That's that fella with 8 wives. Did he really need a warship as well? I mean, I get called greedy for taking the last slice of pizza, but this guy really had his finger in all the pies, didn't he?
That's due to the fact he wasn't a king in the Tudor era. So, as a matter of fact, he did. As for the wives, well, we all know that story. The Mary Rose served for around 33 years in several wars against France, Scotland and Brittany. In 1945, she saw her last action and sank in the Solent, whilst leading the attack on the galleys of the French invasion fleet. The wreck of the Mary Rose was rediscovered in 1971. It was salvaged in 1982 by the Mary Rose Trust in one of the most complex and expensive projects in the history of maritime archaeology.
On that note, let's head out to see just how much was salvaged from the wreckage of a beautiful ship and how important the museum has been around Britain and the community as a historical attraction. So I'm here at the Mary Rose Museum to speak to Paul Griffiths. So thanks for being with us today, Paul.
No problem.
Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. So when was the Mary Rose Museum built and what is the history behind it all?
The Mary Rose Museum was built between 2009 and 2013. We opened on the 31st of May 2013. Since then we've welcomed over 1 million visitors from all around the world, so a fantastic success. The story of the ship is part of Portsmouth's history, sinking in 1545, raising to the surface in 1982 after the world's largest archaeological maritime dig ever, and since then the Mary Rose story has obviously resonated with millions and millions around the world. So the museum, built after generous support from the Heritage Lottery Fund, became a sort of centre, I guess, in the rejuvenation of the city. Well, the Mary Rose is currently undergoing the most exciting period in the history of the ship since coming up, certainly to the surface. We're currently, the main museum's closed until summer. At the moment we're transforming the visitor experience. The views of the ship are going to be unparalleled as you make your way around. So we relaunched in the summer, fantastic opportunity for us to have a huge relaunch and attract many of those 1 million people who've come back and then on to the next 1 million after that. So it's going to be really exciting times, and the visitors we hope will come back, and certainly the city will have an amazing museum to be very proud of.
So what is the reason that people actually visit this beautiful museum?
I think people travel from all around the world to visit this museum because it's a unique collection totally put together on one day. The ship sinks on the 19th of July 1545, so everything in the museum is real, everything dates that Tudor period, and it's a real chance to step back in time, to glimpse what Tudor life was like, see how our forefathers in Tudor times lived, and also just to gaze onto Henry VIII's flagship, which was the centrepiece of the collection, the Mary Rose herself. For me, my favourite artefact is we have the only surviving Tudor mast-up or crow's nest anywhere in the world. So you can go anywhere in the world, you won't find another Tudor crow's nest anywhere. And for me, that's one of the most important artefacts. It's interesting because every single person who works at the Mary Rose or is involved with the project has a completely different as their favourite. So you can ask that question to everyone, you get a very different answer.
So what sort of events do the Mary Rose Museum put on, and what people go to them?
We have a lot of events going on, particularly during school holidays. So this coming Easter, we have a number of kids' craft activities, some fun. We have a Cluedo Day based around our version of the popular board game. In terms of bigger events, there's wider stuff going on in the historic dockyards, things like the massive Victorian Christmas Festival is one of the key highlights of the year. And for us, one of the major parts of our business is renting out venue hire spaces for parties, weddings, dinners, that sort of thing.
Well, it's been absolutely great talking to you, Paul. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem, my pleasure.
But we're going to have to go back to the studio now.
You can visit the Mary Rose in the historical dockyards of Portsmouth, where you will find more than just the Mary Rose.
This includes the HMS Victory, the Royal Navy Submarines Museum, action stations, harbour tours and Royal Marines Museum. But moving on to our third attraction, we have Joe in Studio 2, our passionate Portsmouth football fan, to give you more intel.
Thank you, Taylor. Fratton Park has been home to Portsmouth Football Club since 1898. Many would argue that the beating heart of Portsmouth is the Fratton Park Football Stadium. Every week an average of 15,000 supporters make their way to watch the spirit of Portsmouth football unfold. If you've never been to a football game before, visiting Fratton Park would be a great start. A compact stadium puts you right in the action. The first game played at Fratton Park was a match against Portsmouth's fierce South Coast rivals, Southampton. For the love of all things, Portsmouth won 2-0. Dan Cunliffe and Harold Clark scored to decide the match in spectacular fashion. Portsmouth were also the first club to stage a Football League match under floodlights in a game against Newcastle United back in 1956. Its capacity of 21,000 plus has once been overloaded by more than double. In 1949, an FA Cup match against Derby County saw a record-breaking 51,385 supporters turn up at Fratton Park. However, the capacity has much been reduced by the introduction of compulsory seating in recent years. But nothing to worry about. The atmosphere still remains and the Pompey Army can still be heard chanting around the city. Old Portsmouth, I remember the good old days when we were a force in the Premier League. United we stand and sing, play up Pompey, Pompey play up.
Wow, thank you for that, Joe. I'm sure we'll all be chanting in Fratton Park in the near future.
Oh, Joe.
Swiftly on to our fourth attraction, the Model Village in Portsmouth is life in miniature form at Southsea and is really quite something. Compromising with over 40 miniature scale buildings, forts and castles, as well as a miniature working railway, it has the making of a hidden attraction, but that is exactly what makes the place worth visiting. Let's have a look at how enticing the Model Village can really be.
A model village is a third-acre landscape garden inside grounds of Victorian Fort, built in 1956. It is located on Southsea Esplanade, next to the Canoe Lake and Rose Gardens, and is just a 30-second walk away from the beach. The model village appeals to both young and to old. Set in a beautifully maintained garden with hundreds of different flower varieties, it truly is a great place to spend an afternoon or a day. The village features a variety of highly detailed models, including shops, Tudor houses, windmills, castles, and even train bridges with a live train. There is also a large-scale railway with Thomas and his friends. This is of course enjoyed by the younger visitors at the model village. The model village is open seasonally, however at this present time some renovations are being made, but it is set for relaunch soon, so don't panic.
The Model Village really does capture Southsea in more ways than one. I would recommend our viewers to go through the calming experience if you ever find yourselves in the city. We here at Portsmouth City Sights have been lucky enough to have been sent in some priceless photographs of Model Village in the past. Roberta Fedora sent in these photos which you can see.
Those photos really are priceless. Cheers, Roberta. Also, if you're watching and feel like you have any priceless pictures of our 5 attractions, then feel free to send them in. We'd love to see them. Now here we are at our 5th and final attraction. But before you get there, I must warn you, it's not going to be easy. Also, I was participating in a survival challenge at the seafront. I swam out too far into the Solent and felt the waves take me. But being the survival expert that I am, I obeyed the rules of the Solent and let it guide me to the safest place. There I was, in the midst of the waters, the heart of the Solent. I found the
Solent Forts?
Well, hold on. How was you even there? You couldn't survive the strong currents of the Solent.
You're right. So what I did is I took a ferry from Gun Wharf. I sat on the ferry for about 15 minutes and voila, the Solent Forts.
The Solent Forts, a group of 4 man-made island forts, were built as part of the British sea defences designed to protect the port of Portsmouth against seaborne attacks.
With 15-feet granite walls and armour placing, these magnificent structures are testament to the skill of Victorian engineering.
During the First World War, there was little use of these man-made forts as the military defences in the Channel were so strong.
During the Second World War, the forts came into their own as defences for the Portsmouth dockyard and the approaching sea channels. Life on site was grim, and those serving their country were deliberately chosen based on their inability to swim, to avoid any attempts at escaping their post.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call bang out of order.
In the 1956, coastal artillery was abolished, leaving the forts empty and unused. They were then put up for sale in 1963, but no one invested in these historic landmarks until the 1980s.
In 2009, work began on transforming the first of the Solent Forts into a luxury hotel, and it was opened in 2012. In the same year, Horse Sand and No Man's Land forts were converted into a living museum and into the Grand Luxury Hotel, an events venue that stands in the waters of the Solent today.
So we've told you our top 5 attractions in this beautiful city, but what are they? Of course, our trusted assistant Joe is in our second studio to give you some clarity.
Thank you, Natasha. So, here we are in the studios, fixed in and around central Southsea. All of our 5 attractions have been highlighted on the map here. Let's begin with the Emirates Spinnaker Tower. Head southeast towards Gunwharf Quays, and if you see yourself looking up, you are bound to see it. The giant thing towering above everything else in Portsmouth. It'll also appear right next to the #1 Gunwharf Quay skyscraper, most commonly known as the Lipstick. It's an interesting one. You'll find Fratton Park right here in the industrial area of Fratton, which you won't miss if you're coming from outside the city by car or by train. More recently, a large Tesco supermarket has covered the surrounding area, but not to worry. Just ask any passers-by and they'll be sure to guide to the stadium with their eyes closed. The Model Village is situated here on the Esplanade coastline. There you'll find the Clarence Pier and a canoe lake where you can see the elegant swans and a beautiful Secret Rose garden that supports the surrounding areas. Now, let's head back to the depths of historical Portsmouth Dockyard. There, you'll find the Mary Rose Museum and many other historical attractions that Portsmouth has to offer. And since we're already at the dockyards, may I please remind you that you do not have to swim to this attraction. You can take a short ferry from the harbour out to the Solent Forts, our 5th and final attraction. Don't forget the trains are the only route into the city. Portsmouth offer a park and ride service from Tipner Lane to the city centre and harbour. Buses run around every 10 to 15 minutes, providing a cheaper and more environmentally friendly alternative route into the city. And there you have it. That's our top 5 attractions of Portsmouth. Back to you 2 in the studio.
Can't believe it's the end of the show already. But what's been your favourite part of the show? Seriously.
I mean, Spinnaker's been my favourite, but I'd have to say I've loved all of it.
I love Fratton Park. See, Fratton Park is just a beating heart of Portsmouth. I agree with Joe. Like, all the supporters going there every weekend, 15,000, absolute beating heart of it. It's brilliant. I love it.
I agree. It was such an amazing experience.
But there we have it. So that has been our show for today. We hope we have been enjoyable and insightful.
And don't forget informative.
Yes, and informative. Thank you, Natasha. But be sure to check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/Portsmouth City Sights.
And of course, make sure to follow us on Twitter for updates at Port City Sights.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.